Hello and welcome to the Dog Savant podcast. My name is Brett Endies. I am a professional dog trainer. The purpose of this podcast is to share my dog training experience with you if you are a dog owner or puppy owner looking for dog training advice. If you are a client in the real world looking to supplement the work that we are doing together. And of course, if you're anyone who's just interested in dog training, dog behavior, the life and rants of a professional dog trainer, this podcast is for you. Today is episode 94. Thank you to anyone listening. I always ask, please don't forget to rate, review, share, subscribe. If anyone listening, you should be at least doing that. It helps me be able to continue to share the information I provide with other dog owners. I tell people in the real world so it can help others. And if you'd like to learn more about me, you can visit one of my websites, dogtrainingla.com or gooddogcolorado.com. And you can go on me in social media at the Dog Savant, and you can contact me via email if you have any questions, any feedback about the show, and also if you'd like to schedule an online training session, you can contact me at dogtrainingla@gmail.com or info@thedogsavant.com. Okay, with all that said, let's move on to today's episode. What I'd like to talk about is leashes and what they mean, the importance of them. Leashes that may be beneficial to training, leashes that are not helping training, maybe actually worsening or causing a problem, and just a little bit of a talk about it. The leash, right? All training should start with a leash. A lot of people want their dogs to listen. They have this fantasy or this visualization of my dog's going to be running through the meadows and hiking with me off leash, and when I call them to come, they're just going to stop what they're doing and respond. And that's going to be it from puppyhood. My dog's just going to learn how to come. Sure, that should be the goal for any dog owner, to have that kind of obedience and off-leash reliability in their dog. But it doesn't happen naturally. Now, granted, there's some dogs that are just more tuned in, just that's their personality, their breed, whatever it may be. But for skills, even something like a recall, you need to take the time with a leash to reinforce and condition your dog to what the command means, to proof it in all types of situations, and that requires a leash. So number one, the leash is the most important to apply, teach, back up any obedience that you're working on for future off-leash goals. It could be a short leash to start, it could be a pull tab to start working on some drop leash work, it could be a real long leash if you want to work on recall and get some real life distances that are going to get you to where you can have that off-leash fantasy fulfilled. So real important, everything starts with a leash. I even tell my owners, you should not be giving a command without a leash to be able to apply it and follow through if your dog moves from, let's say, a place that you have them in, until they are 100% reliable and you're seeing that for a consistent period of time, right? So that's why the leash is valuable in a training context. Now, as far as for walking, which is still to me training, it's a real important connection tool to be able to have your dog feel that when you're out walking, they don't have to oppose it, which is where a lot of dogs run into issues when they're walking. They pull, they're reactive when they see another dog, a person, or some kind of distraction. They lunge, and it's all stemming from them tuning out with the leash, right? Because most people do walk their dogs with the leash, but the issue is that they haven't taught the dog how to, when they feel the leash on them, not try to oppose it or tune out when it's on. Actually, it's a way to connect with them. I always say it's like a telephone line. So first off, you want to use the right kind of leash. I always say a 4-6 foot leash is great for just regular walking with your dog's next to you or slightly ahead if they can do that. You don't want anything that has any kind of bungee or springy material unless you're using it for its intended purposes. And maybe I'll talk about like specialty leashes here, towards the end of this podcast. But really, you want just a nice standard leash. Now, the material, I find an organic material like cotton or leather, something soft in your hands. It just works better. It feels more comfortable. Most people really have a nylon leash. They're the most common, basic leashes you'll get at the pet store. Those are fine too if they're comfortable for you. I don't like things that are like round, braided, corded, unless the dog really walks good and you're not really using it to communicate, to correct. It's just kind of just really a tether because the dog is listening or you're at that point with your training. Reason why is you get a rope burn effect. That rounded is just harder to grip with your thumb and your index finger, which I find a lot of leash work. You're not gripping it like around like you're grabbing handlebars. You're holding it with your fingertips a lot when you're doing leash work. So I just find, again, some of it's my personal preference. Some of it's what I've even just seen works best or not for many, many unrelated dog owners, right? So some of this could be opinion, but a lot of this is just based on my experience doing this for a lot of years. So I just know the feedback and what I observe, I kind of just report it. I'm just kind of good at following patterns. It's not really coming from, again, much opinion. But again, feel out leashes, as long as it does what it's supposed to, it'll be good for, especially for walking. Retractable leashes, I think you've heard enough diatribes, about that. Not good. I don't see really any reason why anyone should use a retractable leash. If you really need to get some distance, get a 20, 30-foot leash. Teach your dog how to come back and forth and to control it. They're a lot safer, and you can, again, have a lot more control of a dog when using that versus a flexi or retractable type of leash. Let me think of what other leashes I know of that exist. Anything that has like loop handles, be careful, because sometimes we're just gripping too much for dear life instead of using it to communicate. Teach a good heel command, like I've done in many podcasts about walking. You can, go back and listen, and it tells you how to, teach. Even some videos I've put out how to teach a heel command and what it's supposed to do to promote focus and a loose leash and attention when you're out walking with your dog. Anything that promotes itself as an instant fix for pulling or lunging or anything related to a walking issue, I'd be careful of that. We're not talking much about collars today. It's just straight up leash podcast, but sometimes there'll be certain leashes that have little late night infomercial style vibe to it, and I don't know if those are going to be the best way to address if your dog really does pull or lunge or react on the leash. So leashes, so important. Short leash, long leashes, right? So I talk about the long training lead. I like to go 30. If you're really adventurous, you can go to a 50-foot training lead, but sometimes that'll get cumbersome. I've used even longer, and they're just awkward. They get tangled up. Now, if you just really have a big open space and, not any trees or brush, and your dog just needs a lot of room and you want to, really get out there, I guess 100-foot line, those are more for, I find, tracking, the check cord type of thing. But some people use them, so, if it works for you, if you're at that point where you just want to get more distance and you don't want to drop a leash, or it works for your environment, go for it. Let me think here. I'm probably going to miss some things. Slip leads, the kind with the collar built in, I find they're great. They're really good for training puppies, dogs where you might not need a official training collar like a pinch star martingale, but it gives you that ability to keep the collar high behind a dog's ears. But it's a leash with a collar built in, so I figured I'd talk about it. Specialty leashes. So let's talk about like the springy leashes, right? The bungee leashes. Those are for, and I've never done it. I'm not an expert, but I guess it's pronounced ski-joring. It's ski-joring. It's basically like cross-country skiing with your dog. The dog does wear a harness because you want them putting tension on that leash, and it creates that kind of like a slingshot effect, and then it pulls you along when it gets slightly ahead. And I'm sure if you look it up, you can see what I'm describing. But those, I think, are the kind of, and I think they just have special equipment. They're not the kind of bungee leashes you're going to get at Petco. But, those, let me think of any other kind of leash that maybe wouldn't be practical, but could have, maybe a rounded leash that would be good at floating if your dog's doing water sports. I don't do agility, so I don't know if there's special leashes for those kind of things, but I'm sure if there's any training experts in that area, I'm sure you can find that resource to see if there's any leashes that are for that. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else here is on the fly. As you guys know, I don't always, rarely script this out, but I just kind of get an idea and just stream of conscious it. But yeah, I think, really the whole idea is the leash should not be seen. Oh, tethers, you can get a tether for your dog if you're working on place training or you want to, use it. That a lot of times people will use, it's like a rubber coated wire that they use for like bike locks, like a thin one, and they'll have a clip on either end so you can just tether the dog to something, to the wall or something sturdy if you're trying to work on just some place training with a puppy, keeping them in a spot for potty training in addition to the crate. So I think, and again, the leash is really just see it other than what I just described or for pulling reasons. When you're using it for training, walking, building recall, it should be your telephone line. It's not just tie them up and hold on for dear life. That is the worst thing, and that's what causes so many issues with dogs, seeing the leash as an opposite for what it is. The other thing, and it just came to mind that I want to talk about, is that if maybe you're having an issue with your dog resisting the leash, they fight it when it's on, they get worse in their behaviors when it's on. And it just reminded me, because why did I want to do this podcast? We're taking Mr. Boo here. We're in the car, as you can usually always tell. And I'm taking him to his chiropractor. He's been very active, so I want to just get him an adjustment. He's a little stiff in his neck. And I went to go grab his slip lead so we can take him out and bring him to the car. And he just came so happy when he saw me take it off the hook. He knew he was going to go do something, and he's just pleased to wear it. Like, it just makes him happy to see it and put it on. And it's not like he's excited he's going to go on a walk every time, because a lot of times he's just wearing it to be trained. If any of you have worked with me online, you see him, the Rottweiler, and I have it on him when we do our exercises. And even in training, he's happy to do that. So sometimes a dog will resist the leash, and I've talked about this in other episodes as well, because they're just not used to it, and you have to get through those growing pains of training and the feeling of control. They're not dying, they're not choking, they just think that they're not gonna get their needs met by you restricting their ability to move freely, and some dogs don't like that. Now, if your dog is still doing that, even despite training, or that's where your dog's issues are, we need to start creating a different association with the leash. And that's why my dog, from day one, I just had it on him. With a young puppy, it's good to just have him leash drag around the house and holding it, walking him room to room. So they associate the leash as a way of getting their needs met. Conditioning wise, they just get desensitized to it, because whether they like it or not, they're wearing it, and nothing bad happened to them as a result. And using it in the context of training, walking, letting them feel that control is what keeps them secure, safe. If your dog has a reactivity or an anxiety issue, it's the way that they can even navigate the home space without their hypervigilance, insecurities, overreactions to just everyday stimuli or social interactions getting the best of them. So that's, again, like, some dogs, they will resist the leash. I have to convince their owners that it's not killing them. A lot of dogs, just the leash with the wrong equipment, combo, wearing a harness or the wrong training collar or a regular collar falling too low on them, can create resistance instead of connection. But sometimes it's just your dog has to learn that the leash is now part of their routine, and it's not going to be the worst thing. And by seeing it every day as part of it, they'll realize it's actually a good thing. Because a dog should see they're working, you're leading them, like, oh, the leash, it's an opportunity to do something, to work, to take my owner's instruction, to go, do something side by side, to exercise. Not, oh gosh, now that they're going to tell me what to do, I think I'm going to die, because when we encounter a dog, I don't trust that a human can restrict me and get in the way of our dog business. We don't want that. Okay, so that has been podcast 94. We're getting close. Number 100 is coming soon, and I do have a special guest planned for that episode. Who knows? It may be my last if I don't see some feedback from you guys. Anyway, with that said, again, don't forget to rate, review, share, subscribe, tell a friend, share this on social media. It makes me happy. It's the real reason why I do it. I don't get any money from this. If anything, it costs me money for the podcast hosting and all that stuff and time that we do to upload it. And I'm happy to do it if I know I'm helping you, but please help me. Share, rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend. All right, guys. Oh, and also, don't forget, if you're interested in doing one-on-one sessions, I am doing Zoom and FaceTime training at a great discount. They are working out wonderfully. It is the primary way I've been meeting clients, and it's been just, no one's had any complaints so far. So if you have a real prying issue or a puppy that you've gotten during the whole COVID-19 pandemic and you want to get some training advice and learn how to do it by the book, reach out to me. All right, guys. Thanks again for listening. Have a good day.